Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Between the Sharks. We just had a lot of heavy rain, but that's why we're here today at the ranch. Recently, we've had a bunch of tree work done that just had to be done. The trees were really overgrown and over the house, including two trees that used to be right here. They created sort of a natural berm, sort of, against the side of the house, but you can see the mud flow running straight to the house. Now, I do want to try this today because the soil is very saturated, but not muddy. I don't think I'll turn this into a muddy mess, although I might. However, I think it may help our little Match Pro mini skid steer to have a little bit of that moisture in there. It'll make the soil heavier, but this whole drive is super compacted. So I am noticing back here that this area is pretty sandy, and I don't know why. I can't really explain that. The soil around here is pretty much all red clay, so maybe this was backfill at some point. I'm not really sure. Now this little feller, I have no doubt it has the power to do it, but one of the things about these ultra mini gasoline powered skid steer devices is they're not very heavy.
It's a problem.
How could that be a problem?
The lack of weight is a bit of a disadvantage when you're trying to push heavy stuff. So nothing to it but to try it. So right off the bat, I'm hitting these tree roots, which that's apparently enough to stop a 2,000-pound machine. So we're gonna have some issues, I think. And I also don't know if those tree roots belong to that pine tree or to some trees that we had removed right over here. But either way, they're not coming out with this alone. And I'm not sure that that's a fight I wanna have. I'm gonna try to work around it the best I can. We'll see how that goes. Still trying to figure out the best plan of attack. I don't know much about grading, but I do know that you kind of want to start on a level ground and then dig in. Otherwise, you're going to keep running the slope that's already there. I'm going to try a couple different strategies and just learn as I go, see what works. Well, we're making more of a dent than a mess, I think. Basically just cutting a couple inches off the top side of the hill and bringing it down to the lower side. Know what to say. And this big lump right here, it's these tree roots. And even if this thing has the power to pull them out, it sure doesn't have the weight. I can lift the machine up with the tree root. I'm gonna keep struggling at it for a while. I think it's better, but you know, it's a lot of dirt to move. It's a whole lot of dirt to move. I don't know. It's hard to say, gang. Like, I've definitely taken some of the high end and brought it down to some of the low end, and I've definitely smoothed the grade down toward the storm drain on the far side. But the big lump that's right here, that's tree roots both ways, probably from the pine tree and the tree that disappeared. Now, this machine just doesn't have the weight to pull it up. I am somewhat happy with this. I don't know if you can tell, but I cut into this side enough that we have a little slant back toward this berm over here, so the water that's running down between the two properties should hopefully kind of catch here and run out. That berm is already super helpful. You can tell by the washout on the other side of the fence. And because this isn't really going anywhere, it might be possible for me to grade this back past the fence just a little bit and see if I can get the water to flow this direction and ultimately where it is already running down the hill. Now, ultimately, we're going to have to get rid of this lump because, well, it diverts water sort of toward the garage and toward the house. While we're firmly within the learning curve of this machine here, let's just keep tinkering with it, see how we can do. All right, team, so I think this is for sure an improvement. I think I'm maybe an hour and a half into doing this, and not knowing what I'm doing, I was still able to cut the high edge out of this, fill in the low part over there, sort of slope the the dirt path that I drive on, down back toward the road in sort of an even grade. It's a lot of area for rain, and it's the top of the hill, so it's gonna run somewhere for sure, and that somewhere is downhill, and downhill was decidedly straight at the house an hour and a half ago. Now it's got a path that way and a path this way. We have a ton more of this to do. So clearly I am in the middle of learning not only techniques to grade, but also really getting some time on this machine. It's only got 4 hours on it. I feel like I've done a lot with it, but apparently it's making short work of stuff, or I don't know. So like everybody else, I've turned to YouTube to sort of start to understand the process of this, learn a little bit about grading before I took on this project. And I will say that there's a certain amount of technique in the machine itself. In a lot of the good grading videos, they're using a professional grade machine, and the controls are quite different. So on the bigger machines, it seems that controlling the direction and the tracks is usually a one-handed operation, and controlling the bucket is another. And on these little machines, that's just not the case. Basically, each one of these controls a track and also a bucket function. So there's forward and back, and you steer it like a tank, but then also if you're trying to steer it and use the buckets to sort of like dump your bucket as you back up or move forward, well, you're trying to pull back and to the side. And that can be kind of a difficult technique to get a handle on, because you're also balancing on the machine as it goes over rough terrain. Obviously the bigger machines are better machines, but for the price point, I think a little more practice and I'll be a little more better. The other issue is mass. This thing is not able to push right through these tree roots. That's not a surprise to me necessarily, but next time I try something like this, I'll make sure to have a pickaxe on hand so I can take some of these roots out as I go. A big machine, I'm sure, would just push right through it. And it's not a power thing, because this machine could pick itself up by the tree root. So the root was strong enough to lift a ton, basically. So I know some of you folks out there are interested in these machines. Maybe you're considering buying one, or you're just enjoying watching the machines work. I mean, can't really blame you. But let me know in the comments. There's not a lot to say while I'm driving this thing around, because it is indeed loud, but I got a lot of projects like this. I think they're interesting, and if you do, just let me know and I'll keep making these videos. So this channel was born kind of working on cars, but if you're into this kind of stuff, please let me know in the comments, or even better, subscribe. As always, good luck on your projects out there, and we'll see you next time on Between the Sharks when we do something.